Good morning. Thanks for making the journey through Melbourne traffic to join us here. My name is Sanjay Mehta, and I'm the Managing Director of Trend Micro here for Australia and New Zealand. And it is my pleasure to welcome you to the second annual Evolve event here in Melbourne. You'll notice some changes to the event this year. The most prominent one being that it is no longer just about cloud. One thing we found over the last year in Australia, where 12 months ago people were talking about a cloud last philosophy, is that while we're seeing a lot of movement of data from private data centers to other data centers around the world, other data centers now here in Australia, it's not necessarily all about the cloud. There's a lot of doubt. We'll talk about that today. But there's no doubt that the fundamental theme is very, very true. We've added some other interesting topics around consumerization and cyber threats. If you haven't been paying attention to the news lately, advanced targeted threats are hitting people all over the globe. There's been research in the last 4 or 5 months from Trend Micro and from other trusted sources that in ANZ alone, small and medium businesses are taking more than their fair share of targeted attacks, mainly because they're the weakest link in the chain. This morning I was reading some news. There was a recent social networking type hack where somebody is posing to be a very well-known manager inside of a very well-known Malaysian bank. They've created a false LinkedIn profile. They're emailing people of wealth saying, we want to start to conduct business relationships with you. They set up a Facebook profile. Under the same thing, unfortunately, they used a picture of Colin Powell, who used to be in the US government, said stock AP photo, so maybe a little bit of a giveaway, but it shows that fairly unsophisticated folks are now trying to do fairly sophisticated things. The world we're living in is really changing quickly. Everybody talks about BYOD and consumerization, but if you actually look at the number of devices, the types of devices, the operating systems behind those devices, the apps behind those devices, and then look at who's using them, right? I have a 2-year-old at home who knows how to swipe and play Angry Birds. It's maybe pathetic parenting, but it's fact, right? And then my other kids are trying to Skype and FaceTime and whatnot back to home, right? Those same devices are the ones that we all take right back into our corporations, whether IT managers want to admit it or not. What's going on with those things, right? So massive explosion on the endpoint. At the same time, if you look at the data center, massive explosion in compute power around physical world, virtual world, and cloud, right? And then a massive explosion of the communication between those endpoints and those data centers. And never before have we seen these three things expanding at such a massive rate. Now, along with all those great opportunities comes the threat. And the threat is something we've never seen before. I'm talking to customers in Australia that are seeing targeted attacks specifically designed for them, hitting them every day, designed to execute once and only once. Right? Now, these guys are lucky because they have a staff that's looking at this stuff. But I think if we went around this room and said how many companies have staff that understands malware at that deep a level, understands the threat and who's targeting them, how to detect it, and what to do about it, might be a little bit of a scary proposition. So that world is changing amazingly quickly, and we're going to address some of those topics today. Another thing we changed up was the guest speakers. We brought in some folks from industry, from government, who are facing the problems, driving the policies, and setting the tone for what we're going to face over the next 12 months and beyond. We had a special guest who was meant to fly in from the US today, Mr. Howard Schmidt, and due to some logistical challenges, that didn't happen. He will be appearing live via video, however, so we trust that technology won't fail us a short time from now. And we've also brought together an ecosystem of partners that we believe accurately reflect the same ecosystem that you rely on in your day-to-day operations. That goes from the industry analysts you look to for advice, to the vendors you look to for solutions, to the partners and the integrators you look to make sure the solutions actually work in your environment. So we're thrilled to have you here today. Hopefully it's the second time for many of you. We look forward to some great content, some great interaction. Welcome, thank you. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Andrew Milroy, who is Vice President of ICT Research at industry analyst firm Frost & Sullivan. Thanks.